She would go into homes and carry messages that, if there is a beautiful girl in some village, next day the armies are there and they pick the girl to the harem. So 5 rupees for every Nair head, 5 rupees for every Coorgi head, and 3 rupees for every Nair woman who's brought as a sex slave. And the Coorgis are also fair skinned, some are very pretty. So a young boy whose head comes to him and he sees it and he says, such a pretty boy, let's stop this beheading thing.
Tipu inherited the harem of his dad.
Yeah, but I don't think Tipu had that kind of, he was not a womanizer. To that extent that the father was. The father was notorious for that. And I do narrate that also.
That soothsayers.
Dolu, the Korvanji, who would go from village to village. She would go into homes and carry messages that, if there is a beautiful girl in some village, next day the armies are there and they pick the girl to the harem. So someone who was a harbinger of fortune telling and all of that becomes a harbinger of great misery for a family. So that's also a part of this thing. But I don't think Tipu
did that. Okay.
There was no time, I guess, for him.
But there were other cruelties. Now let's go to the Coorg, the Kodava cruelty. Yeah, let's talk about that.
No, Coorg. So Coorg and Malabar, both these places I think were really, bastions of resistance for Mysore's invasion. Mysore was the imperialist here, what they accused the British of for the rest of India. And the Coorgis never gave up. Similarly in Kerala, the Nairs and the Thiyas later.
Yeah, let's talk about that also after the Coorg, then we'll go to the Kerala one. Yeah.
So in Coorg, you had a royal family and everywhere there's a war of succession or something. The Mysore gets involved, tries to play one against the other, and Hyder did that, somehow kept it in abeyance. And these were coastal areas or closer to the coast. So they the main idea to invade Malabar or Coorg was to gain a lot of port access to Honavar, Mangalore and all these western coast, so that trade and the navy and other things could be accomplished there. But the Coorgis again fought back. They're a valorous, chivalrous group even
Martial
now.
Race.
Martial race. And so they resisted. Hyder somehow managed to put...
How many chiefs from, I think 3 army chiefs, no?
Yes.
From
Karyappa.
Yeah.
So Tipu, of course, so Hyder somehow managed some kind of semblance of peace there. But when it came to Tipu, I think there was a lot of uprisings. So he goes and captures the entire royal family. Veera Rajendra, who's put in prison along with his entire family, his sisters and everyone. And the Kodavas themselves are trying to resist this, and there again deception. So he calls a lot of them to this place called Devati Paramb, which is some hillock or something in Coorg, and there ostensibly to have
Bhagamandala.
Devati Paramb.
Okay.
Bhagamandala was the main the Bhagandeshwara temple that was there, which is where the Talakaveri and that region. But in Devati Param on 12th of December 1785, and so the Kodavas even now every year on 12th of December, I think they commemorate it as Martyrs' Day, because thousands of their people were called ostensibly for negotiations. They were told to come without arms, and once they got there, subterfuge, they were all captured and literally stabbed in the back, and then all their bodies thrown out. So a large massacre of their ancestors happened, and so that's why the Kodavas too, I think they hate Tipu Sultan with a vengeance. In fact, dogs in that place are called by the name Tipu even now, and that's a part of the folklore there. So many temples, the Bhagandeshwara temple, which was one of the main temples, that was also destroyed. And later, after doing all these atrocities, and he writes to his commander Zainul Abidin Shustri, who wrote this treatise called the Fathul Mujahideen. I mean, he all his wars, it typically had the name of jihad. It is a religious war, it is a holy war, and we are a ghazi or a religious warrior, and these are mujahideen. So what should a mujahideen do is that military treatise that Shustri wrote. And he's first sent to Coorg, but he's good in theory, not in practice. He's actually defeated and comes back. And later Tipu himself goes and does these atrocities and tries to teach them a lesson. And there are lots of practices there, including the polyandry, which he abuses abuses them for. In Kerala, the matriarchal society, he abuses that. He almost dons this mantle of a social reformer to reform that society. So this royal family is put into the prison, and then he goes and to Shustri he writes that not only the Coorgis who are alive, the captive prisoners, even the dead must be converted.
He says, it is the custom with you for the eldest of 5 brothers to marry and for the wife of such a brother to be common to all 5. Hence, there cannot be the slightest or the remotest doubt of you being all bastards and whore sons. And then he goes on to say that I will not revile or molest a single individual among you, but making Ahmadis, that is Muslims, of the whole of you, transplant you from this country or to some other, by which means, being illegitimate, your progeny or descendants may become legitimate. So he thinks that they are illegitimate because they are sons born out of a polyandry system. Polygamy was okay, polyandry was not okay. So he says that I will take you out of India or whatever and transport you somewhere so that your descendants become legitimate, and the epithet of whore sons, which is born of sinful mothers, may no longer belong to your tribe. So no respect for a tribal custom of polyandry or the matrilineal in the Malabar region that he had. Okay. And something which his father did not interfere with.
He did not bother much.
It is not documented.
The cruelty was there both in Coorg and Malabar. He sits there and says 5 rupees for every Nair head, 5 rupees for every Coorgi head, and 3 rupees for every Nair woman who's brought as a sex slave. And in Coorg, they say he's sitting there and counting heads. Some 600 heads have come, and he's ghoulishly sitting and distributing money for every head that is brought. And the Coorgis are also, fair skinned, some are very pretty. So a young boy whose head comes to him, and he sees it and he says, such a pretty boy, let's stop this beheading thing. So if the pretty head had not come, he would have continued this one. So that cruelty was there in the father too, but this was an added thing of adding a religious bigotry element also. Convert the dead, dead bodies being circumcised and converted, like what sort of and then you're listing statistics. I have converted so many, I have done this, I have broken these many churches, temples.